Google Glass Smart Eyewear has many fans but also many haters, and the device will be available to more and more users in the future, sporting all sorts of interesting and possibly creepy features. Hopefully though, most users won't have the chance to actually try out a glass-based augmented technology currently in testing by Tracking Point. The solution lets users shoot a rifle at targets around the corner. While it's certainly interesting, it's also potentially dangerous for civilians. And for the military or law enforcement personnel, Glass doesn't yet offer the kind of battery life that would make a useful solution in many scenarios. The startup demoed in a video this Google Glass feature that allows soldiers to fire a gun around the corner from unsupported positions, behind the back, to the side and over the barricades. All with the help of Google's wearable device that's connected via Wi-Fi to the rifle, picking up the video streamed by the rifle. The scope technology used by the Tracking Point can stream video to many other mobile devices, not just Google Glass, assuming that's something anyone wants to do, trying to fire a shot around the corner and from an unsupported position. The video demoing this Google Glass Warzone feature follows below.
Welcome to DCTP from the Chaos Communication Congress, the yearly annual Congress of the Chaos Computer Club in Hamburg. My name is Philipp Banse, and my next guest is Stephen Balaban. Welcome to the program, Stephen. There was a lot of talk about Google Glass and wearable computing. You're a developer, a hacker, and you have your own company called Lambda Head. And you develop and sell similar product like Google Glass. Just before we start talk about what you did with Google Glass, just explain what Google Glass is and how it works and how it looks like for those who don't know.
Yeah, so what Google Glass is a basically a wearable computer.
Just put it on and then.
Yeah, sure. It's a wearable computer that allows you to do things like take pictures. You can record video with it. You can kind of send emails, dictate text messages, receive tweets. It's kind of both a combination of a notification platform as well as a image and video recording device. The reality is that Google Glass runs Android, and at its core is basically an Android phone on your face.
So you have an Android phone in your pocket, and the Glass communicates with the Android phone.
So Google Glass can communicate through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to either an iPhone or an Android device, but it also basically is its own Android device in itself. So Google Glass runs Android 4.0. It has a system on a chip. It's its own processor. It's got its own Wi-Fi chip. It's even got a graphics card and flash memory and all.
But if you want to have internet access, you have to pair it with a smartphone.
At the moment, to get internet access, you can either pair it with a smartphone, or Google Glass will connect directly to Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Without your phone.
So what do you see in the display area there?
Yeah. So and what I see when I have Google Glass on is for example, I'll have a home screen,
Take a picture of me.
Yeah, sure. Here we go. There, I just took a picture of you. I just see you sitting there. When I click this button up here, you hear a little ding. Yeah. And now I can see a picture of you come up on the screen, which is what I'm looking at right now.
And can you do it by voice control?
You can say, "Okay, Glass, take a picture," and it'll take a picture. I think first you've got to basically enable it. It's actually having some issues right now in terms of it was just going through an update sequence because I hadn't turned it on until recently. But basically, you can also do voice commands. You can say things like, "Okay, Glass, take a picture. Okay, Glass, record a video." And that's the basic functionality of this device.
How do I notice if you take a picture of me?
So what you just saw there was that when I took the picture, you see how the screen lights up here? I don't know if that's visible.
Yeah, I think it's if you look on this camera,
you should be able to see here that screen is lit up.
Yeah,
that's the indication. If I hold this down again, now I'm recording a video. You should also see.
I see it.
You see the kind of a little bit of a bright light that's coming from the screen here. It should. I'm not sure how clear.
I see a small display.
Right, exactly.
It changes. It's not a steady light.
Yeah, right. It's not a red recording light. So and then when it's no longer on anymore, that's basically when you know it's not recording.
Okay.
But so that's basically the only notification that you have that the device is potentially recording.
And can you switch it off?
So by default, whenever it's recording, every piece of software that Google's written for the device, when it's recording, the screen is on full brightness. However, you can do things by rooting the device and working with the low-level power management API to turn the screen off while it's recording. So that's basically what I was doing with this device. I turned the screen off, and part of that was for battery power, to decrease the consumption of the battery so that I could record for longer. But the other part of that was basically just showing that, look, you can set this device up so that it's recording and nobody except for you knows about it.
What are the privacy implications?
Well, some people bring up the point, wow, this seems like somebody could wear this and really violate my privacy while I'm on the street. I think that there's two perspectives to that. One is there's the privacy implication for the people that I would be looking at on the street, but really the more important thing, I think, is the privacy implication for me, because it's actually violating my privacy a lot more than it's violating somebody else on the street's privacy. And I'll show you how that is. For example, when you go to a store to buy something and use a credit card, okay, if I'm wearing Google Glass and let's say somebody's executed some kind of exploit on my device and has set it up so that it records without my knowledge and the screen doesn't go on, what do? I take my credit card out, I look at my card, I swipe it, and guess what? I just took a picture of my credit card. I go to a bank ATM if it's recording video, I put in my PIN. Right, so I'm actually leaking a lot of information, whereas if you're just walking on the street, sure, it is definitely potentially, you could argue, a violation of your privacy, but I think one of the things to really worry about is you really want to know when this is recording you if you're wearing the device.
But don't you notice it wearing the device that it records?
No, so you could potentially set it up where it is on, but in the background another process is running and is doing recording.
So, and you looking through the display don't see that anything is recorded.
So that's totally possible to set up, yes.
Okay. And another thing is face recognition. Google said, well, it's obviously possible, but we don't do it.
Yeah, so what Google said is they've changed their terms of service such that any what's called quote-unquote glassware, which is any piece of software that's for Google Glass using what's called their Mirror API, is not allowed to have facial recognition, and they wouldn't approve it to be installed on other people's glass devices, which is basically the same thing as Apple. If Apple was to say, okay, we're not going to allow this in the App Store.
Is this a method that works to prevent this kind of facial recognition?
I think that it works in an economic sense. That is to say, it disincentivizes individuals to write such applications for commercial gain, because basically what Google has said is that they're going to cut off a major distribution channel for your software. However, from a real perspective of if somebody wants to write this themselves, it's actually quite easy. You can just simply write a normal Android application and run it directly on the device, and Google really doesn't have any control over it from that perspective.
And did you do it?
Yeah, so that's exactly what that's what we've done.
And what did you find out? I mean, what did you learn?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. We learned a lot about the low-level power management APIs for Android itself. We learned a lot about how well, honestly, one of the things that we really learned when I kind of wore both Google Glass as well as wore Lambda Hat for a few months, trying to record as much as I could, I learned that the amount of data that you can gather about yourself by just taking a picture every few seconds is really astounding and a little bit frightening.
So what did you do exactly? You set it up that way that it takes pictures every how many seconds?
Yeah, so it's a variable that's in the code. It's some constant, and you can change it. But in general, I would set it up to take a picture every 4 seconds. So click 1, 2, 3, 4, snap 2, 3, 4, and basically, would just build up that picture stream. And it was a very, these are very high resolution images, 5 megapixel images that we're taking, and then would do some post-processing with that data. For example, pulling out faces. There's some kind of, in the talk I presented some kind of more crazy ideas like pulling out license plates. There's a bunch of different applications that you can do with this kind of massive amount of data that you have from taking a picture every 4 seconds.
I mean, the privacy implications you mentioned are pretty obvious. Is it useful?
So one of the useful things that we're still building, but you can imagine being really useful, would be basically a search for your life. So you'd like to search, show me a list of the people that I met between December 25th and December 30th in Hamburg, Germany. And being able to pull out the faces of all the people that you've had a face-to-face conversation with, as well as potentially the conversations that you have with those people, I think that would be an extremely useful application. And while right now it's kind of more in the research part of like exploring what data can we gather, what can we do with this data, I think that the always-on wearable computer is going to be a very useful device in the next few years.
And did you exactly do it? I mean, you obviously took pictures every 4 seconds. Did you did you take out the faces and run it through a database?
Yeah. So in addition to just logging the data, we also did post-processing where we ran it through a facial detection pipeline where we would simply pull out the faces and basically every single frame there we would do a normal facial detection algorithm.
It's only detection. By that face you don't know the names or anything.
So first you do the detection pipeline, then what we also have done is a basic clustering pipeline. So this is not recognition. Clustering just means that you're basically plotting these out in some high dimensional space and seeing where they coalesce. So you would imagine all of your pictures would be very close to each other. All of for example, my co-founders' pictures would be close to each other. And so we did run some clustering algorithms over that data. And we also have another application that actually does recognition with a database, where we gathered data, we tagged that data, and then we trained a facial recognition algorithm, and then the images from the device were checked against that database. So we have implemented both of those things.
I think there are two ways to approach it. Like you can do this kind of stuff on Google servers, and you can do this kind of stuff on your glass or on your local machine. Does it make a difference?
I think it makes a huge difference. I would not personally trust any service with, for example, pictures of my credit cards, pictures of me typing in my password in my computer, pictures of me putting my PIN, pictures of my text messages. Now, obviously, for example, with most of your text messages, that's being managed by a third party. But I personally and have explicitly not automatically uploaded any of the images that we've taken using both Glass and Lambda Hat because I just don't think it's a very secure thing to do. And
how is Lambda Hat any different from Google Glass?
I think so. The big difference is sheer battery life. Lambda Hat basically allows you to record from, let's say, the moment you wake up 9 a.m. to well past 9 p.m.
It's a hat with a camera.
It's a hat with a camera. It does not have a display, so it's not. Google Glass does have a display. There's trade-offs there. I personally, when I wore Google Glass, when I first got it for a month straight, I found myself using it for two things: recording pictures and telling the time. And taking pictures and video and telling the time are the two use cases. Only one of those requires a screen, and I already use my cell phone to tell the time. So basically, we cut off the display and drastically increase the battery.
And more and more wearables will come to market.
Yes.
Like this, more and more, and there's no way around it. What do you see coming? Where is it going?
Yeah, I think that you're going to start to see a lot more what I refer to as always-on devices. So whether that's Lambda Hat, which is an always-on video recorder. Let's be clear here. Google Glass, as it's designed, is not an always-on device. It's meant to be intermittently on. If you run the software that we normally ran on it to take a picture every 4 seconds, this lasts about an hour and a half. So that's not a very long period of time, whereas Lambda Hat lasts for about 12 to 16 hours. So basically an entire
But
day.
Lambda Hat stores the photos where? Locally?
Locally on Lambda Hat. It's a full-blown Android computer. And
it's meant to stay there, or to
it's meant to stay there and on your local machine.
Okay.
So either that's where it's meant to be analyzed by you locally, not uploaded to Google or Facebook necessarily, and maybe only the things that you want to upload.
What do you think? How should we deal with this massive amount of data that is collected by these wearable devices?
I think that we should just be very cognizant that we're collecting the data, that this data contains sensitive information, that it is useful, and I think we're going towards a world where you're going to be recording a lot more about yourself. You're going to be able to do some really amazing things, whether that's facial recognition or remembering basically every conversation that you've ever had. And 5 years later, we'll be able to look back to now and say, wow, I remember having this conversation. And so there's some really useful things, but we just have to be careful about where we put that data.
And do you think it will be possible to store it all locally and control everything, or is it just the way it goes that we all upload to the cloud and Google and Facebook control everything?
So I think that Google and Facebook would like to have you think that only they're capable of managing and processing your data, but the reality is that with some of these new things, like for example general purpose GPU computing, you have a lot of processing power even on your normal laptop computer if you bring in kind of GPUs to help out with the CPU. And not to mention your phone itself is actually quite a powerful computer. And so I really do think that things are going to become more local, in addition to the fact that if you just graph hard drive cost per gigabyte, it's this exponentially declining number. So I really do think that we're going to start seeing more distributed data as well as processing.
And do you think this will calm down those privacy activists that say, well, we don't want to get recorded all the time, and no, it's stored locally and it's always my data and it stays on my computer and I run the facial recognition algorithms, it's not Google, it's not Facebook, it's me. Do you think it'll make any difference?
I think that it does make a difference. Now, I think that it's a little bit hard to stop this kind of inevitable forward march of technology. And, in the same way that back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, we saw the rise of instant cameras, and there was a lot of, kind of controversy about the privacy implications of being able to capture a photo at all. And we survived and we kind of moved on and the world didn't come to an end. So will it satisfy them? I don't know, maybe some people. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is that when you talk about all this technology, you're really talking about the fact that you have this technology that used to be in the hands of governments and large institutions like corporations and corporations and states, and you're starting to see it brought back into the hands of the average person. And I think that in some ways it's actually very empowering for the average person. And I think,
in which way? Yeah. In which way? I mean, one thing you mentioned for yourself, you're recording your day. You can easily remember people who you talk to and the conversations. You can get them at hand. You had what else? Where is the empowerment?
Well, so I think that one of the big things, and so a lot of the people who have been working in the wearable computing space for a while, for example, Steve Mann, he coined a term called surveillance. And surveillance is the idea that instead of surveillance, which is basically an authority or a power managing a CCTV or a facial recognition system or a license plate reader. Surveillance is everybody recording things, and kind of a more radical transparency, and bringing those technologies down to the individual level, and allowing the individual to enforce transparency and enforce basically making both states and corporations responsible for their actions. So I think it's empowering in that respect.
Okay, Stephen, thanks very much for coming.
Yeah.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel, which is Lambda Labs, right on YouTube, and we also have a Twitter, Lambda Hat, @LambdaHat.
All right, check it out. Thanks very much for watching. This is DCTP. My name is Philipp Banse, and check out our YouTube channel at dctp.tv. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned.